Okay, it appears as 21 on my...
Okay, we should speak to that.
To move as motion. The road management plan is a document that describes road assets within road reserves for which the council is responsible. It outlines inspection interval, response times, as well as it identifies the management systems which this council will implement to ensure that the responsibilities within Road Management Act are met. So presence of this road management plan shows that the council has a planned approach towards the total asset management, and it is very detailed. From what I can see, the road management plan has been updated to mainly clarify some defect descriptions for roads. I've also noticed that response times have been mainly reduced in certain defects, so which is a good thing. So those are the updates that have been done in this road management plan. So,
good. Thank you, Councillor. Yes. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, it's Council's obligation to regularly review this policy. I think it's every 4 years, and it is open for discussion. It's out. Submissions close on the 19th of May. So any ratepayers that want to have a input to the plan, please, you've got to the 19th of May to get your advice in.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillors wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? All good. Councillor Abdullah?
No further comments.
No further comments. That being the case, all in favour? Excuse me? No, unfortunately, sorry. Councillors, item 8.1, sorry, on page 32, we have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor wishing to speak to that? It's the Shepparton Arts Museum Advisory Committee appointment of Friends of Sam member. Councillor Sutton. You wish to move that motion?
Yes.
I'll have a seconder, please. Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Sutton.
I'd like to move the recommendation as printed on page 32. And I'll say this is an extremely exciting time to be on the Shepparton Art Museum Advisory Committee with the new SAM design decided and plans being finalised. The preferred location is at the Lake Foreshore, and I'm sure this art museum is going to provide the community with lots of interesting times, and I'm sure it will also increase our tourism to Greater Shepparton.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe.
Just an addition that I'm sure Mr McMaster will be a great addition and support the new venture moving forward.
Thank you. Any councillors wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Councillor Sutton, back to you. Any closing comments? No. None. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 8.2, councillors, on page 35. Before I get pulled up by Councillor Abdullah, and page 36. Do I have a councillor wishing to move that motion? Councillor Patterson. A seconder, please.
I can second that.
Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, it's Health and Wellbeing Action Plan. It's targeted towards that. It's very appropriate. We have these seeding funds which help to go to organisations which seed generally something bigger that they're going to work on. So health is such an important thing, and it's becoming more important in our community as we all get older, and it's very important we support health and wellbeing in our community.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe.
No, just to align with Councillor Patterson, I agree.
Good. Councillors wishing to speak against the motion? For the motion? I'd just like to add that, yeah, look, they're only small amounts of money, but every little bit helps, and I'm sure it makes a difference to these organisations. As Councillor Patterson said, some of these are just, it's like seed funding. It enables these organisations to gain more traction with their own industry. So, yes, as I said, not a lot of money, but I'm sure it'll go a long way. Councillor Patterson, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
All good. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 8.3, I think, councillors, on page 43, section 86, committees of management, appointments of members. Do we have a councillor wishing to move a motion? Councillor O'Keefe.
Recommendation, thank you.
A seconder, Councillor Patterson. Councillor O'Keefe.
No, look, it's pretty straightforward. I was actually over at Katandra West Community Centre about a month ago, so it's a great little community over there, and looking forward to, hopefully working with them again in the future. And I support this recommendation.
Good, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Our work is done, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
This group of people have done a magnificent job. The whole community out there, the time they've put into raising funds, doing painting, etc., to raise sufficient funds to get this up to the standard they wanted is absolutely amazing. And they've got a great facility out there now that'll do them for a long time. And the final act for us is basically okaying this committee, and then they're looking after it. So whilst we've had a long input, and I know Councillor Hayesman's been working with them for years and years and years and years, and myself for about 4 years, there's a lot of other people out there who have just done an amazing job. You cannot believe that place. If you go out there Thursday night for teas, there'd be 70 or 80. This is in the old club rooms where you can hardly fit. Now, they're coming from miles away. It is a terrific community asset, and these people are very passionate about it, and they'll do a great job looking after it.
Indeed. Any other councillors wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? I'll add my comments again, seeing as there's no negative comments. Again, as Councillor Patterson pointed out, this is a combination of years of hard work, and in the end, the asset out there will no doubt serve the community for decades and decades to come. So it's a great achievement all round. Councillor O'Keefe, any closing comments?
No, thanks.
All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 8.4, Council's Community Matching Grants Round 2, 2016-2017. We have a recommendation on page 47 and 48. Do I have a councillor wishing to move a motion in relation to that recommendation?
I'll move it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. A seconder, please.
I can second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, this is again some money we give back to the community where we received it from, and a lot of it goes to seeding efforts that they're putting in, computer training for the Codgerman Club. I know as councillors sometimes we get criticised for not going to everything that we possibly can, but I've committed myself 100% to going to the Goulburn Valley Chinese Association Midwinter Dumpling Day. I'm going to be there without exception. So, and there's lots of good things there, and they're to be congratulated for the work they do.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor O'Keefe.
No, look, pretty much the same. It's a great list of organisations that we're supporting.
Good.
I think it's great that we can do this for our community, and also for community recognition for those that would like this type of assistance, to always remember council's here for them.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Councillor Patterson, any closing comments?
No, just I've got myself hungry now.
Yeah, you've made me hungry as well. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.1, councillors, on page 57, the 2018 general valuation. There's a recommendation there on page 57. Do I have a councillor wishing to move the recommendation as the motion? Councillor Patterson. Seconder, please. Councillor Sutton. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, this happens every 2 years. We're required by state legislation to appoint a valuer, and all properties have to be revalued in lieu of adjusting rates, etc. Every 2 years. It's done on the 1st of January, and this is the first step. We've appointed the valuer, and the next X amount of months they'll go around and start valuing properties, and then there's a whole process that gets followed after that if you're not happy with the valuation, etc., and we'll all hear about that in due course, I'm sure.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
No, I think Dennis has said it all.
Thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against the motion? No. Any councillor wishing to add further comments for the motion? None. Councillor Patterson, back to you. Any closing comments?
No, thank you. Councillor Sutton covered it all.
Thank you. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9.2, councillors, on page 62. Review of investment and cash management policy and rebates for retail land occupied by charitable organisation policy. We have a recommendation on page 62, councillors. Who wishes to move that?
I can move that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Keefe. A seconder, please. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I think it's important that we support, obviously, this recommendation. These charitable organisations are doing it tough in any case. So obviously dollars add up, so it's very important we continue to do so when they're particularly a charity.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah.
I would just like to add that about the investment and cash management policy, have a read if anyone wants to understand what is the policy around our investment and council's investment and cash management, and it's giving enough details about why the decisions are made in a way that they are made. So yeah, thanks.
That's sound advice. Thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Councillor O'Keefe.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.3 on page 65, we have a recommendation that the council receive and note the March 2017 monthly financial report. Do I have a councillor wishing to move this recommendation as a motion?
I'll move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Seconder, please.
I can second
Councillor
that, Mr Mayor.
O'Keefe. Councillor Patterson, do you wish to invite someone to speak on behalf?
No, look, we're going along very well, but I'd just like that confirmed. We might invite the Director of Finance, Mr Chris Heitzel, to give us a quick rundown on
Mr.
how well
Teitzel.
we're going.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and through you to the councillors. There's a few things to note this month. Generally, we're tracking fairly well against budget for this time of year. You'll note in the attachments and the operating statement that we're currently running the accounting surpluses ahead of budget by about 24%. That's a timing difference. We've received the federal roads to recovery funding of 3.29 million a little earlier than we expected. So that's bumped that up when you do the monthly comparisons. So we'll expect that to correct in the coming months. In terms of financial health, our working capital ratio at the moment is running at 323%. That's in the very low risk category. And again, that's reflective of that additional cash that we've received through the grants, but also reflective of the amount of cash we're holding to spend on capital works for the rest of the financial year. In terms of the cash holdings, we've got 37.5 million in investments at the moment, an average rate of return of 2.04%. Rates debtors are running at about 13.8 million, which is comparable to the same time last financial year. Capital works at the end of March, we've spent 19.8 million compared to 22.5 at the same time last year. However, as at today's date, we've ramped up our capital expenditure quite considerably, and we're currently sitting at about $23.5 million spent here today, as at today. And asset renewal is, as a percentage of depreciation, is currently projected to finish the year at 106%, which is good for our existing assets. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Good, thank you, Councillor Teisel. Mr Teisel.
We've asked you.
Councillor O'Keefe, did you
No,
wish to?
thank you. That's great, thank you.
Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? I'll speak for the motion, just when I say for the motion. I understand going through the numbers on a monthly basis, it's inaccurate sometimes in the sense, as Mr Teisel pointed out, timing is everything when it comes to reporting accounting figures. Sometimes the numbers can look really, really good or not so good, but in fact the overall picture is out that we are tracking online or in line with what we've expected. As Mr Teisel alluded to, our risk in respect to debt is very low, and that's the way this council wishes to keep it, and that's what we're working towards. So generally speaking, we're tracking very well. I think it's a responsible effort on behalf of the organisation, and I thank you for that, Mr Teisel. Any other councillor wishing to speak against the motion or for the motion? None. Councillor Patterson, you wish to?
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment that ebbs and flows, up and down, up and down. The end result is the final one. I'm very confident it'll be a good ending, and I have every confidence in our financial department.
Thank you. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.4, councillors, our draft rating strategy 2017 to 2021. There is a recommendation on page 68. Do I have a councillor wishing to move that recommendation as a motion? Councillor Abdullah, do you have a seconder, please? Councillor Sutton, Councillor Abdullah, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I would like to move this recommendation on page 68 about the, should I read out all
Well,
four
you can
points?
if you choose to. It's rather lengthy,
Well, I
but...
would just say that it's about to endorse the draft rating strategy 2017-2021 as presented, and points 2, 3 and 4 on page number 68. Basically, this rating is based on the following objectives. One is about that the entire community should contribute towards the unavoidable costs of local government. That's a very important objective that everybody needs to understand when talking about rating strategy. Also, the other objective is that where feasible, services should be funded on a user-based system, and also where specified local objectives can be achieved using differential rates. So that says why differential rates are used in our case. And also the residual service costs should be apportioned on the basis of property valuation. Now, one of the things is that the rating strategy determines how and not how much the council will raise money from properties within the municipality. It determines the share of revenue contributed by each property. Some recommendations include about for Greater Shepparton Council to continue to apply differential rating as its rating system as a part of this rating strategy. This addresses equity issues. And the recommendation is about is saying that the separate differential rates not to be introduced for properties defined as retirement villages, because their situation is the same as other common properties. There's also a recommendation about municipal charge, which is maintained at the existing proportion of 12% of total rate revenues, and MC, of course, helps to ensure that owners of low-valued properties also contribute a reasonable amount to meeting the unavoidable costs of local government. So these are some recommendations. Draft rating strategy, from what I understand, it has been, it was developed after going through a very comprehensive process. There was a rating strategy advisory group that was involved, and of course pros and cons of all the objectives were analysed at that time. So it's something that is now we are ready to endorse it, and that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Sutton.
Francine has said it all, but this is going out to the community, so anybody wants to put in a submission, they can do that, and that can be heard by the council if they wanted to.
Good, thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Back to you, Councillor Abdullah.
No
Any
further
comments?
comments?
No?
Thank you.
Good. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.5, councillors. Our 2016-2017 Quarter 3 forecast review. We have a recommendation on page 73. Do I have a councillor wishing to move that as the motion? Councillor Patterson. Seconder, please. Councillor Sutton. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, I'd again invite Councillor Title to make a comment.
Not councillor.
Mr Title, if you'd like to just bring us up to date very quickly on the revised forecast for Quarter 3.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is at one, as councillors are aware, the quarterly review that we normally go through year on year, where we tweak where we think we're going to end up for the end of the financial year. It's pleasing to be able to report to you that we're forecasting an improved operating surplus at year end by about $1.84 million better than the Quarter 2 adopted forecast. This is largely due to lower than EPA levy costs at Cosgrove Landfill, some salary savings across the organisation, and an increase in the membership income at Aquamove. So every little bit helps to contribute towards that. The capital works forecast is a projected $42.6 million, and that remains steady from the Q2 adopted forecast. Year-end working capital is improved from Q2 as well, and we're projecting it's $17.3 million as compared to Q2, which is $16.3 million. And restrictive investments have also increased along those lines as well. But it suffices to say we have sufficient working capital at year-end to meet all our financial obligations, and we maintain a low-risk position in terms of liquidity and debt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Title. Councillor Sutton, do you wish to add anything?
No.
No. Any other councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion, back to you, Councillor Patterson. Any closing comments?
Yeah, we've been kicked around a little bit with our waste, as we all know, but basically we're on top of it now, and we should end up nice and square in another 3 months.
Good. Thank you. All in favour of the motion, councillors? Against? Motion carried. Now, item 9.6, the councillor expenses and entitlements policy. On page 76, there is a motion that the council adopt the council expenses and entitlements policy 37.3, POL3. Now, any councillor wishing to move a motion?
I'd like to move a motion with the following change, please.
So you would like to move a motion that, well, you better tell me what you'd like to move, Councillor Patterson.
Well, you already know.
No, I don't know.
On page 2, the top paragraph, attendance and functions,
Page 2 of the...
which is the wrong page. I hate technology.
Policy.
Going back to page 2, sorry, I was on page 3. I support the rest of the document, and I'll read it out so people are aware what we're talking about. A maximum of 2 councillors may undertake the company's director's course each financial year. Councillors wishing to undertake the company's director's course will be required to incur all educational course fees up front. Once the course has been successfully completed, an application for reimbursement may be made provided the following: successful completion of the course, which is completed, accompanied by an official receipt of results. 2, evidence of payment of course fees. 3, application must be made within 3 months of completion of the course or notification of the final result, whichever is later. A councillor who achieves less than 80% attendance and subsequently fails to pass the course will not be eligible for reimbursement. Now, that course is really expensive to run. Do you want me to talk to it now, or
No,
do we need a second?
at this stage we need to know that we're adopting the council expenses and entitlements policy, less that point you referred to, which was item... Sorry?
There's no number on it.
No number.
It's top
So,
of the page.
council's clear what the motion is?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder?
I'd like to second that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Patterson, you can speak.
The deletion of that whole section.
Deletion of that whole reference to what Councillor...
That paragraph, not the whole motion.
What Councillor Patterson actually read out.
Now, my rationale for this is that councillors, we're all very passionate about our communities, etc., but, you know, some of us aren't the sharpest tool in the shed. We need to get as much knowledge and experience as we can. We're not professors of finance, we're not lawyers, we're not head of governance departments. We need to gain all that. If we were head of those departments, we wouldn't be applying for a job for $25,000 a year, I've got to tell you. The concern I have with this is putting the onus directly back on the councillors. If they do not complete the course successfully, they lose their $8,000. That's a third of their pay for the year. There is no initiative there to do it at all. We have a budget of $133 million that the councillors work on per year. We're responsible for it by law. It's out. This is where the buck stops with councillors. It is important we get as much education and knowledge to be able to utilise that money as good as possible for our ratepayers. Therefore, by putting something like this in front of councillors and basically making it very unattractive to pursue this course is not the right way to go. Also, it restricts councillors to 2 a year. Right? There's 9 councillors. Terms are 4 years. That's 8 could possibly do it if you had a whole heap of new councillors. Why wouldn't you let them all do it the first year? You've got the benefit of the next 3 years after that. Rather than having 2 skilled up and ready to go, you've got to wait for the next year for another 2 to get skilled up, then another year to get those 2 skilled up. They might not stand again. You don't know. You're better off getting people in there, getting them trained as quickly as you can, and then you'll receive the benefits. So I do not support any of that. I think it's just bad for council in general. I know of previous councillors and mayors that have actually have done the course. Some of them have failed. Some of them haven't even sat the test. Still, which isn't ideal, I grant that, but still, they have completed most of that course and therefore they've learnt a lot along the way. Just because you haven't done the exam doesn't necessarily mean it hasn't been a benefit to you and the councillors and therefore the ratepayers. So I totally support the rest of it, but I do not support that part I would like taken out.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor O'Keefe, do you wish to add anything?
Yes, and just one other thing too, I'm not sure if Councillor Patterson did mention it after all that, is that the $8,000 needs to be put up front. So we would have to pay that straight away. And as Dennis said, our budget is fairly tight. I'm very, very keen to do this course, but to actually outlay $8,000 to do it right now would be difficult. I think that would be enough to put most councillors off. So I absolutely support Councillor Patterson with this one. Yep, motion.
Any other councillor wishing to speak against this? For the motion? I'd just like to speak to the motion or for the motion. I support Councillor Patterson's motion. Limiting just 2 councillors per year with an expanded council of 9 it seems illogical to me to try and have some councillors do our director's course in the 4th year of a term, which may prove to be pointless if that councillor isn't re-elected, number one, and for 3 or 4 years they haven't had the actual benefit of that course. So, again, the financial commitment is another aspect that I think may deter some councillors, so I fully support the motion. That being the case, Councillor Patterson, any closing comments?
No, I think it's all been covered, thank you.
All in favour of the motion? We're all clear on what the motion was? It was the policy less what Councillor Patterson put in. Thank you. Against? None, so that motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9.7, contracts awarded under delegation and status of contracts advertised and yet to be awarded for March 2017. We have a recommendation on pages 78, and that's it, on page 78. We have a councillor wishing to move that as a motion. Councillor Abdullah, is that your hand? I saw it float there. I thought I did. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sure I saw that. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Sutton. Councillor Abdullah. Sorry.
It's self-explanatory, but I would like to move the recommendation as motion that the council note the publicly advertised contracts awarded by the Chief Executive Officer and directors under delegated authority and tenders that have been advertised but not yet awarded. So there's a description of the awards, and that's all.
Good, thank you. Councillor Sutton.
No, it's fairly.
Any councillor wishing to speak against the motion? For the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of quick comments.
Yep.
And hate is a terrible thing, but I'm learning to hate the words. Cosgrove, South, landfill. It is, we're spending an absolute fortune on it. We've got to do it, but I'll be so happy when it's all done, like the rest of the councils. We'll have some money to spend on something else.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. No other councillor wishing to add comment for or against the motion. That being the case, Councillor Abdullah.
No
Any
further
closing
comments?
No, thank you. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 9, maybe not, 9.8, sorry. Our draft 2017-2018 budget. There's a recommendation on page 82. I will actually read out the recommendation. I won't move it, of course. But the Council endorsed the draft 2017-2018 budget as presented, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the preparation of the draft 17-18 budget in accordance with Section 129 of the Local Government Act 1989. B, stipulate in the public notice that persons may make a submission on the draft budget 2017-2018 in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act. The Act and that written submissions must be received by 5 p.m. 19th of May 2017. Point C, to undertake the administrative procedures necessary to enable the Council to carry out its functions under Section 223 of the Act in relation to this matter. Number 3, hold a special council meeting on Tuesday, 6th of June 2017 at 5:30 p.m. to hear any person wishing to be heard in support of their submission on any proposal contained in the draft 17-18 budget in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act 1989. And point 4, consider all written submissions on any proposal contained within the draft budget 2017-2018. So any councillor wishing to move that recommendation as the motion? Councillor Abdullah. Seconder, please. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Abdullah.
Yep, I would, first of all, I would like to say well done to council staff for their professionalism in budget preparation. So the draft budget is out for 2017-2018. The budget has been prepared on the guidance and directions provided by the council. And there were 3 guiding principles in this year's budget. They were, number 1, that borrowings will only be for capital projects. Number 2, we will aim for a surplus budget. And number 3, we will fully fund asset renewal. So it's great to see that all the objectives have been achieved in this draft budget. If you have a look at the budget, we're having a total revenue of 132 million compared to 127.93 million in 2016. There has been an increase of 3.25%. Similarly, in total expenditure, we have got a slight increase, that is 3.4% increase. And the total expenditure estimated is $119.94 million. Now, the total capital expenditure in 2017-2018 is estimated at 37.33 million. And this is across projects in following categories. It's very detailed. It's really very useful, especially for community members if they want to get a quick understanding of council's allocation of expenditure across the main services it delivers. Now, for example, it shows that for every $100, how that $100 is allocated to each service area. And they would notice that the highest portion is spent on capital works. It's $25.8. Second highest expenditure is, of course, in governance and administration. Third highest is aged and children's services, whereas fourth highest is maintaining community facilities and assets. The lowest amount of expense is made in the area of environmental management and drainage. So it kind of gives you a quick view of how your $100 are spent. Also, on page number 34, there are details of operating and capital recurrent and non-recurrent. Sorry,
would you like any further time?
Okay, 1 minute.
Yeah, councillors are happy for Councillor Abdul to continue?
More than happy.
More than happy.
Okay.
Continue.
Just would like to note that some operating grants are projected to decrease. For example, youth services, early childhood education and environmental management. However, there is an increase in grants that is projected in SAM, parking enforcement, and Commonwealth Home Support Program. So I believe that it's a very, having all these details in the draft budget, and it just shows that it's a very good example of transparency, and everything about council's spending is available here in the budget. So I would encourage community to have a good read of it, understand the budget, and make the submissions. There is an opportunity for making submissions, and the timelines are mentioned in the recommendation. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, I'm just not sure whether Councillor Abdullah covered the 2% rate increase and 5.4 in the curbside waste. That's what we're sticking with this year.
Good.
We have not sought to get an increase. Things getting tighter and tighter. But we have to keep working within the constraints we're given. So I would certainly encourage everyone to have a good look at the budget and see what they think. Last year was, for once, an exciting year budget-wise because we had lots of people that come and met with us at council, and we took note and we changed things. So that is not the final budget necessarily. We are more than happy to look at every proposal that comes to us, and if we believe there should be changes made, we'll do that. And they have to the 19th of May to get their submissions in, and then there'll be a special meeting where we'll sit down with them and listen to their concerns and see if we can help them out.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? I'll add my comments, seeing as there's no one speaking against the motion. I think overall it just shows what can be done in respect to the confines of a rate cap, which has placed stress on not only this council but every council in Victoria. But it shows that a good organisation can work well within their means and still create a surplus and hopefully not affect too many services in a negative way. But of course that remains to be seen once we receive our submissions from the community, which we fully encourage. But overall I think it's a great piece of work and I'm very happy to report that as I said, we've kept it within our means and we'll be delivering a surplus, which is always a great thing. So congratulations to our staff. That being said, Councillor Abdullah, any closing comments?
Just a very small comment that this is a draft budget. We have noticed some small typing errors and consistency issues that will be rectified in the final budget, as I understand. So when you're reading it, just keep that in mind.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.9, instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. We have a recommendation on page 87. I need a councillor to move the motion, please, in response to that recommendation. Councillor Patterson, a seconder, please.
I can second that.
Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, this is the delegation which gives the CEO power to pay accounts basically and spend money, which they do a very good job of that. It also gives him the power to authorise other staff members down the list to conduct their business as council and pay the bills that they know are due. What it does, it just makes things move a lot quicker. Otherwise, we'd have small tenders coming to council. It'll be another 30 days before we could authorise it, etc. So this generally makes everything move a lot quicker, and anything that is substantial comes to council, as it's just done back there, to be checked over and basically ticked off by councils anyway. So we're well and truly aware what is happening, and yes, it has to be done every 2 years, I think, and this is what we're doing now.
Good, thank you. Councillor O'Keefe?
No, nothing to say.
No, nothing to add. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Councillor Patterson?
No, I think it's been reasonably well covered.
I think it has by Councillor Patterson. Indeed. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 9.10, instrument of delegation for members of staff and development hearings panel. There's a motion on page, recommendation on page 90 and 91. Yes? So do I have a councillor wishing to move those recommendations as the motion? Councillor Sutton, no, Councillor Patterson again, sorry.
I think it and
Well, Councillor Sutton no doubt will second the motion, yes?
Yes.
Yes, indeed, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
This is basically a continuation of the previous one, but it's more to do with the developing hearing panel. That we give staff the authorisation to partake in it, and there's some very important decisions get made there, of course, so it's very important that they're well and truly informed of all the latest regulations, etc., and have the authorisation, more importantly, to make that decision. And I'd call on yourself, Mr Mayor, as a member of that panel to probably make it a little bit more specific than that.
Well, I think you've covered it quite well. Basically, the DHP, there's a lot of changes within the legislation that affects the decisions made there, so this allows the staff to be updated basically on the latest information and act on that. So that's basically what it's about. Councillor Sutton, did you wish to add anything?
No.
As a seconder of the motion?
No. I think Dennis covered it, and he covered it, so...
Any councillor wishing to speak against this? For? Back to you, Councillor Patterson.
No, I think you've covered it very well, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, very short and sweet. That being the case, all in favour? Against? That's carried. Item 9.11 on page 94, the draft council plan, another important document, and page 95, sorry, from 94 to 95. Do other councillors wishing to move this recommendation as a motion?
I can move it,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
O'Keefe, sorry. A seconder. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, just pretty much it's a work in progress. We're working on our council plan. Yeah, I think everything's pretty much listed there to where we need to be at, and obviously community consultation is important, community input.
Oh, good. Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Abdullah, wish to speak to it?
Just would like to emphasise that, of course, this is one of the most important plans. It's the strategic plan for 4 years. The plan has been developed in consultation with many stakeholders. Started with the councillors, council staff, community. There were forums that were held to get the inputs from community. Basically, the idea is to come up with a strategic plan, and in this draft council plan, there have been 5 strategic objectives have been identified, and for each strategic objective, there's a strategy to achieve those objectives, and there are measure of success as well as key performance indicators for each of this measure of success. So I think in this round, this strategic plan has been made quite sort of concrete, and in terms of monitoring of the plan, the measure of success and indicators have been introduced, which will really help us to monitor the performance of this plan. So I would encourage community to have a close look at the plan and of course provide any submissions if they feel like. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For? Councillor Patterson.
Speak for it. There is absolutely an enormous amount of work goes into this by the staff. Councillors also have a big input, but nothing compared to the staff. It is a very, very big job to put together. And as a council, we were quite determined to, the previous council plan, should I say, was a bit wishy-washy to me. It was a lot of motherhood statements in there that really you couldn't measure whether it succeeded or not. So we're very adamant, this plan, that we want to get something that we can actually see and tick off that we've completed. And that's what a lot of the concentration's been on. I know from my, I'm only councillor here that's been involved in one before, and I appreciate the effort that our new council put in it. You come in and you don't know what it is, and you've got a lot of work to do regarding it. But they've done a terrific job, and I congratulate them. But we basically identified that we want something that we can measure the results. We don't want wishy-washy stuff in there. We want something that we can actually aim at doing and trying to achieve and then ticking it off. And that's down that course we've gone. It will now go out to the public to have a look at it. They'll come back hopefully with some more recommendations and things they want in there, which is extremely important. That's what it's all about. It's their plan as well as ours. And then we'll adopt it, and that plan will be what we work to for the next 4 years. So congratulations to the staff. I know those 4 people over there have all had a big input to it. A lot of work, enormous amount of work. And it's good that they do work some time of the year. It's just about
Good. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for those great compliments. Any other councillor wishing to add comments to or for or against? No against. I'll add my comments for. There's 2 documents that council or councillors really need to focus on in their term of service, and that's the council plan, obviously, and the budget. This is the roadmap for the next 4 years, so it's hugely important that we get it right. That's why it's going out for public consultation, and we hope to get any recommendations coming back. That being said, Councillor O'Keefe, you moved
No, I
the
think it's all
motion.
been said. Thank you,
All
Mr
being
Mayor.
said, all in favour of that motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.1 on page 98, councillors, we have a recommendation. Do I have a councillor wishing to move that as the motion? That the council adopt the grants distribution policy 43.POL 1. No? Councillor Patterson? Is your arm getting sore? Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Sutton. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you very much. This is to do with, we've looked at all the grants, and there's several grants, as we all know, and they all play a very important part in our community. And it is one of the privileges of being a council that you can actually support a lot of these groups. All the grants have been looked at, and been a few small changes, and this is basically a policy that covers all that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that it's nice to be able to give some money back to the community, and there seems to be, there's 4 new grants that have been added to this: the Greater Health grants, the Community Sustainability grants, the Heritage grants, and supporting business infrastructure grants, which I think is a very good policy to have. So I'd just like to say, yes, that I support this new grant.
Policy is great. Thank you. Councillors wishing to speak against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Patterson, closing comments?
Right,
none. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.2, which is our proposed amendment for C201 Shepparton Art Museum redevelopment. So there's a recommendation on page 104. Do I have a councillor wishing to move this recommendation as a motion? Councillor Patterson. A seconder, please. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, this is basically a common sense approach to a very major project. There's lots and lots of examples around town. When there's a large project, you make the Minister for Planning responsible. It cuts out a lot of the red tape. It cuts out a lot of the small stoppages that can come along and get in the way. The Minister is then responsible for the planning controls, and he, rather than have to go through processes before it gets to him, he is in charge. It's happened currently happening for our courthouse. SPCA regularly do it. Unilever. There's several other places that do lots of works. They do not need to go through the detailed process that a lot of other people have to go through. And it's an important thing. This is an enormous project. It'll be great for the area, and we can't afford it held up with very small technicalities. Giving the Minister the power, he basically can't be overridden, so I fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Abdullah.
Just would like to say that this is important to expedite the project in a sense that there are dependencies. We've got grants from federal and state government, and they follow, and we have to follow certain milestones for delivery. So those milestones they are on page 105 of the agenda. But basically, it's just a very good approach to expedite the project and to avoid any unnecessary delays and meet the deadlines as per the timeline. So that's important. Thanks.
Councillors wishing to speak against the motion? None. For the motion? Back to you, Councillor Patterson, for any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All in favour of the motion? Councillor Patterson?
No,
Against? None. Motion carried. Item 10.3. Yes. Adoption of Amendment C188 to the Greater Shepparton Planning Scheme for the Shepparton North Growth Corridor. We have a recommendation on page 111 and page 112. Councillors, do I have someone wishing to move this recommendation as a motion? Councillor O'Keefe had her glasses in here. Councillor O'Keefe, seconder, please. Councillor Patterson. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, just basically that I support the recommendation 10.3 on page 1111, and pretty much just the planning amendment, everything listed needs to be adopted. Did I say the right item?
No, that's okay. Page 111 and 112.
Oh, I'm sorry, 112.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Councillor Patterson.
I'll just add that it's 30 acres of land that we're reclassifying from farmers to farming land to residential to allow development to continue and not be ad hoc. As Councillor O'Keefe said, it needs that.
Good. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion. Back to you, Councillor O'Keefe. Any closing comments?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.4, councillors. We have a recommendation on page 120 in relation to the draft urban design framework, Shepparton North and South Business Areas, Addendum 2017, endorsed and released for public comment. So, who would like to move that recommendation as a motion? Councillor O'Keefe. It's a bit difficult with a small, intimate group of councillors, isn't it? Arms get very sore. A seconder, please. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, just basically recommended that the council does endorse the draft, the UDF addendum, and release it for public comment. And pretty much the recommendation listed 1, 2 and 3. I support that on page 120.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
I just would like to say that the guidelines available in this draft urban design framework would help us standardize and sort of encourage the beautification of our areas. Especially it mentions about two areas, Shepparton North Gateway Commercial Area and Kyla Lakes Drive. So all the guidelines and recommendations would definitely help us beautify this place and also to remove some unnecessary, obstacles yeah, in beautifying the place. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? Any further comments for the motion? Councillor O'Keefe, any closing comments?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.5, round 2 of the 2016-2017 small and large events grants. We have a motion, a recommendation, I keep saying motion, sorry. Councillors, on pages 128, and that's it on page 128. Do I have a councillor wishing to move that recommendation as the motion, please?
I can move that, thank you, Mr
Councillor
Mayor.
O'Keefe. Seconder, please. Councillor Sutton. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, just the purpose of the event grants programs to provide financial assistance as well as marketing support to the groups who are organising events for the Greater Shepparton Municipality. Supporting both small and large events from a base price of $2,000 up to $5,000. This support encourages such events to take place and enhances the community involvement and activity. So very important social and business opportunities. It actually is a ripple effect. So I think it's very important we support these type of events, both large and small.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Sutton.
I'd just like to add that it also helps to get our name out there with some of these community events, as well as the running festival and things like that, which really get our name out there as being the sporting capital of Australia.
Indeed. Any councillor wishing to speak against this? Any other further comments for the motion? I'll just quickly add that I think it's a great representation of our whole community. When you look through that list, it's so diverse. So yeah, it's just a great representation of who we represent. And it's great that they're all getting different amounts of money for their particular purposes. Councillor O'Keefe, any closing comments?
No, just one more thing. Probably just, yes, as you say, a very diverse range of organisations, you know, from very different walks of life. So encouraging the community to look at that opportunity in the future, that council does support these type of organisations.
Great, thank you very much. Now, councillors, all in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.6 on page 143, councillors. The Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee Annual Report 2016. We have a recommendation, councillors. Who will move that as a motion? Councillor Abdullah. Seconder?
I can second.
Councillor Patterson. You're trying to handball that, but your hand was in the air. Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, I would like to move the recommendation on page 143. It's about, it says that the council receive and note the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee Annual Report 2016 for the year ended 31st December 2016. I would like to just say that this is a very active and passionate community. We have got representation from Shepparton as well as small towns such as Murchison, Katandra, Merrigum, Tatura, Tulamba, which is excellent. I have also noticed that this committee is playing an important role in creating awareness about our heritage. And it's providing a very strong advisory role. If you look at the annual report, it outlines some of the achievements, some of the highlights of the committee. Basically, some of that is about professional guidance and administrative support, and also about the arranging lectures and identifying and recommending significant heritage properties in Greater Shepparton for the Victorian Heritage Register. All these contributions from the committee, they are appreciated, and annual report, it's very comprehensive and it covers everything. One of the things that I've noticed is also about the committee that is undertaking Greater Shepparton Heritage Study, Stage 2. And just to highlight that this is possible only because of the active subcommittee members of this committee, and their research and knowledge of heritage buildings, places and sites is vital, and it's very impressive. So I'm very happy to receive the report and to see and to read all about the achievements. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patterson.
No, thank you.
Nothing to add. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For? Councillor Abdullah.
No, thanks.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Now, councillors, we seem to be in the mood of giving away a lot of money tonight. So page 146, we have a recommendation in relation to Community Sustainability Grants, 2016-17, round 2. Do we have a councillor wishing to move a motion? Councillor Abdullah. Seconder, please.
I can second that.
Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to move the recommendation on page 146 that the council adopt the recommendations of the Community Sustainability Grants Assessment Panel to fund the following 3 sustainability grants to the total value of $5,722.20. So we've got 3 organizations who have received this grant. Basically, it's the demonstration of council's continued effort to foster positive relationship with community and providing them the support that they need to help achieve benefits such as environment sustainability, social connectedness, enhanced sense of self and belief. So these grants up to $2,000 would benefit these community groups and committees. It is also encouraging to see that the grants panel is actively looking to support all applications, even if some of them do not meet the criteria for sustainability grants in this case. I noticed that one application from Harston Hall Committee of Management for upgrade of external lighting did not meet this grant's criteria, but it was diverted to another program, which is Building Renewal Program for funding. So, and also that's very good. Also, the successful grant applications equally benefit Shepparton and small towns, so Tulamba in this case. So, these are points.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Councillor. Councillor O'Keefe.
So this has been a fairly new grant that was first launched in July 2016. I think it's going to be an interesting space to watch, particularly moving forward with environmental sustainability strategies. I think it's a great thing to really support. It's quite interesting, the three different variety of projects that are listed there. You've got your Filipino Australian Friend Association with the herb and vegetable garden. You've then got your block-out blinds for Toolamba Recreation, and then your Golden Broken Indigenous purchase of a direct seeder. So it's a very diverse range there, and interesting in as far as something new, and also, again, supporting our environmental sustainability. So watch that space and hopefully it'll grow.
Good, thank you, Councillor. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For the motion? Councillor Abdullah, any closing comments?
No, thanks.
All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.8, the renaming of Koala Tip Road, or rename the Koala Tip Road, yes, to a new name. That's on page 154. There's a recommendation that I'll read out. The council, in accordance with the guidelines for geographic names 2010, rename Koala Tip Road Koala to Botanic Gardens Avenue. Would any councillor wish to move that? Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
A seconder, please. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is obviously a big decision to actually change the name of a road. However, I do think the change of name from Koala Tip Road to Botanic Gardens Avenue will provide clear direction to the entrance of the Botanical Garden. It'll fit with the image of what we're trying to project there. Assist people to find the site. I think that's an important thing. I myself got a bit lost out there, heading out there. I think this lines up with the project moving forward, the actual renaming of the road and the future plans of the site, and that it is to be enjoyed by the locals as well as a great tourist attraction. So we want that to be an easy place to find. We want the road to represent, I think, exactly what they're trying to create out there moving forward. It's still a work in progress. It's important to recognise the heritage, obviously, in the rebounds of changing a road name, but I think it is a much better fit for what the road leads to, and I think, again, very important to also recommend that we somehow maintain the heritage and the history of the site, and apparently there is some signage out there that does explain, that has been a tip there before. It's currently displayed, but I do think moving forward, for the image, the perception from the public, lots of reasons, I think this is perhaps a great suggestion to actually change it to Botanic Gardens Avenue.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah.
I would just like to support what Councillor Kim O'Keefe has just mentioned. The road is leading into Australian Botanic Gardens, which is being built on a former landfill site. So with the changed use of this site, and also to promote this beautiful and impressive space, it makes sense to rename the road. The new name has far more aesthetic appeal than the current one, and no doubt that the current name identifies the history of the site, but the same can be done by providing appropriate signage in the garden regarding its history. So I also note that there were 14 submissions received for this name change, 10 in favour and 4 in opposition due to historical purposes. Australian Botanic Gardens Avenue is reflective of the current purpose of the site, the one which is more permanent. So I think that it is only appropriate to go ahead with the recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? For?
I'd just like to add a comment. I'm in favour of changing the name to Botanic Avenue, but I think it might be a good idea, or it might be a nice idea, if we could just put underneath Botanic Avenue, Old Tip Road.
That's a lovely thought. It's not a motion, unfortunately, before us at this point in time. So thank you for that. Councillor Patterson, did you have your hand up?
No, but I'll do it now. Good idea. Look, I can see there's 4 objectors to changing the name, and I can see their point of view. It does say a lot about the Botanical Gardens that was a tip, and that it really does hit you in the face when you drive down there expecting to see a tip and you see, oh, what's there now? So I can certainly understand those people objecting, but yeah, it's probably going to have the right name, I believe. But formerly Tip Road wouldn't have been a bad one.
Any councillor wishing to speak for it? I think we've all spoken. Councillor? No, we've all done that. Yeah, good. Having said that, Councillor O'Keefe.
Just one final comment is that, as I said, I did head out there not so long ago, and that I'm looking forward to completion of Botanical Gardens moving forward and hopefully creating a great tourist attraction, as well as the community enjoying the gardens out there.
No doubt. Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Now, item 10.9 is another renaming Tullygarupna West Bumbartha Road. We have a recommendation on page 161. Do we have a councillor?
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Seconder, please. Councillor Sutton and Councillor Patterson.
Yes, this is an area I frequent and have all my life basically, and it's correct. It is confusing. They twist and turn. It'll be a lot simpler when they continue on for Golden Valley Highway straight through to the Numurkah Road, Nathalia Road. A lot more easy for emergency vehicles, pizza vehicles and everyone else to find the place where they're trying to get to, rather than turning and going left and right with the same road name and crossing other roads that they shouldn't be there basically. So this is good. It'll help people out that way a lot.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton?
Oh, it's a safety issue, so I think it needs to be done.
Good, thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak against this? For? Councillor Patterson?
No.
Seem to have just finished speaking to the motion, yes? All done, all said? That being the case, all in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.10. Councillors, page 165, the Greater Shepparton Movement and Play Strategy, Consultation Report and Vision and Direction Paper. There is a recommendation. Who'd like to move that as the motion?
I can move it.
Councillor O'Keefe. Seconder? Seconder, please. Councillor Abdullah. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, it's a fairly large consultation report here. Obviously the vision is part of our movement strategy. I think it's important that we obviously move forward in this direction, particularly making our roads, paths, everything easier to access. Yeah, so pretty much support the recommendation on page 165 for our movement and play strategy consultation report.
Good, thank you. Councillor Abdullah, any comments?
Well, this, yeah, I would support this, and I would encourage everyone to have a look at this strategy. Basically, it's a long-term vision. It's all about making Greater Shepparton a livable place and active living, and it's taking a very holistic approach to the provision of an improved transport system. So not only relying on cars, we also need to do more walking, cycling, and public transport within Greater Shepparton also needs to improve. So this strategy is very comprehensive and talks about the different areas of improvement.
Thank you. Councillors wishing to speak against this? For the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to support both councillors. It is a futuristic, it's a direction where we're heading, and it'll deal with walking, cycling, public transport, freight movements, etc. Getting a strategy in nice and early, it'll allow us to move around our city so much easier in the future. So I totally support it.
Good, thanks, Councillor Patterson. I'll just add my comment as well. I mean, this is the first step to producing a draft or a movement and play strategy. So this has to be done, otherwise we won't get to the outcome that we desire. Sorry, Councillor O'Keefe. Sorry, any closing
No, nothing
comments?
else to add. Thank you, Mr.
No, thank you. All in favour of the motion? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.11, councillors, on page 172, in relation to passenger rail, the services project and economic impact study reports. There's a recommendation there on page 172. Who'd like to move that as a motion?
I'd like to
Councillor
move the motion.
O'Keefe.
Thank you.
A seconder, please.
No.
Councillor Patterson. Councillor O'Keefe.
Look, this is hugely important. There's lots happening in this space at the moment. I think as a fast-growing city, We need to have a strong vision in this space with our rail. We have strong investments happening in our town with the multi-million dollar courthouse, expansion of La Trobe Universities, GV Health, just to name a few. So this increases, these type of projects increase the demand to have a better rail system in place. We're obviously going to be tracking a lot more people with these type of progress happening in our community. Attract people to our region, we need to have better rail services, we know that, and to link easier access and to encourage opportunity for our future. We're already disadvantaged with the amount of rail services or lack of amount of rail services that are offered compared in particular to other regional areas. So we need to pursue this area, and we also need to be very part of this in the future. We need to stand up and make some noise, as we are, with a sustainable upgrade that delivers, as it mentions in the report. We want at least 8 daily type of services and reduce travel times from Shepparton to Melbourne and vice versa. This is going to help our tourism, our economic opportunity, and at the moment I think we're disadvantaged and we're getting the impact of lack of. So I think this is a very important report that needs to be supported. We need to be definitely in this space. In light of what happened last week with our putting our hand up for the Commonwealth Games, we're having lots of reasons to really make some noise and really show that we're capable and in need of this type of service within our community. So rail is a very, very big impact on our community, passenger rail and freight rail for that matter. So I think this particular report is the start of many things in the future to come. So it's really important that we all get on board literally and take advantage of this, these opportunities that come our way.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, I sat in this very room 2 years ago arguing with a couple of councillors about wearing a dressing gown to Melbourne on a train, trying to get some attention to this, and this is just continuing on. This is a terrific report, though. Sometimes you get reports from consultants that a bit wishy-washy. This report was terrific. The briefing we received from them was very clear and precise what has to happen. It shows that we're a long way down the rail, literally. We've missed out for a long time, and it's going to be a big job for us to catch back up. We have to start somewhere. It's not just to do with fixing our line down the road here, it's to do with what comes out of Melbourne. No room for an extra train to come to Shep because it can't get through the transit lines in Melbourne. So there needs to be new lines put in Melbourne before we can get a proper service here. But the Minister, Jacinta Allen, basically said, well, you come up with a business case and prove it and we'll see what we can do. And that's what has happened. And it's a very good business case that shows that if you do build, they will come. Where it's been built, it's just blossomed, absolutely blossomed. I was in Castlemaine over Easter. The train goes through there to Bendigo. It was just buzzing with people who were getting on and off the trains. Something like 10 or 15 a day. Gives the opportunity for the whole town to build on it and all the stops down the way. So we have just been neglected for far too long. It is in disrepair. Don't want to get political and say whose fault it is, but we need to continue to work to try and catch up. And that's what reports like this will do. And all we can do is keep going. CEO's done a great job commissioning this and working on it. And I congratulate him and the team over there. And we need to keep working at it. We need to keep pushing because it is the one thing that is holding this town back more than anything else is a fast, reliable service to Melbourne. If we can get that, everything else will boom.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any councillor wishing to speak against the motion? Would you wish to speak against the motion, Councillor Abdullah? No. Any councillor wishing to speak for the motion? You will? Thank you.
I think I would repeat what my fellow councillors have just said. We have all seen that Shepparton has been disadvantaged in regional train infrastructure investments. For example, the regional fast rail project in 2006, where Shepparton-Seymour was the only train corridor that was excluded. Shepparton is growing, as Councillor Kim O'Keefe has noticed, and future is looking positive with all the recent developments and our Commonwealth Games 2030 announcement last week. So it's looking up, however. In context of that, an improved Shepparton-Melbourne train service is an absolute necessity, one that is justified in terms of potential economic growth of the region, as well as on the principles of social justice and equity, I would say. Our people living in Greater Shepparton, as well as in surrounding regions such as Moira, Campus Bay, Stradbroke and southern New South Wales, they need access to decent train services That is to be able to transport people in a manner that is safe, convenient, efficient, reliable, frequent, faster, as well as it's inclusive to the needs of diverse groups of people, that is old, young, students, and disabled people. We have been telling them for a very long time that this need is there, but there has been little or no response so far. So given that Shepparton is getting no response from the decision makers, Council has taken a very intelligent and timely initiative to undertake these two studies, that is Passenger Rail Service Improvement Study and Passenger Rail Economic Impact Study, and to provide objective data about infrastructure costs and economic benefits to progress further. To bring Shepparton in line with other comparable regional cities, what we need, according to these reports, is that we need 8 services compared to the current 4 services. We need reduced travel time to 2 hours compared to current travel times of 2.5 hours. We need modern velocity carriages as opposed to current obsolete and disgraceful carriages. I would strongly support the 2 studies and recommendation. So for an ask of $186 million for train service upgrade, and also a 5th daily service with current infrastructure in 18-19 state budget. I noticed that the reports, they were consulted by strategic partners such as Committee for Greater Shepparton, Susanna Sheet, Shepparton Rails, GV Health, etc. So the notion that build it and they will come has worked in case of Bendigo, Ballarat and Geelong, and it will definitely work for Shepparton, Greater Shepparton as well. So well done to the Council and the team involved in development of these reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wishing to speak against the motion?
Against.
For the motion.
I just think the report actually gives us somewhere to start. So it's a starting line, and it might take a long time, but at least we've got something to work on and for.
Good, thank you, Councillor. I'll add my comments, as there hasn't been any negative comments. Government usually rely on cost and benefit factor calculations when they assess these types of projects, and they've given a lot of money over the years to a lot of projects that have come up with a very low number. This project, with a 200% increase in usage, would add up to 0.6, which is nearly 1. Governments like to see the number 1 clearly attained. With a 200%, 250% increase, we can get up to a number of 1.12, which is a fantastic actual number in respect of assessment of these projects. And I would suggest that the build it and they will come mentality, I think, would really apply here. It would really work, that whole concept. I think it's a project that really needs to be done. As Dennis said, this has been ongoing. I would just like to say that I think if we weren't advocating this, we'd have a lot of time on our hands. It takes up a lot of time for council and the council itself and the organisation, but it's so worthwhile. We are persistent, and we will win in the end. I can assure the community of that. We will not stop until we get the service we need. So after that, all in favour, councillors? Closing comments, sorry.
I did just have one, actually.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay,
you may.
And I think a very important vision is the projected population growth. You know, we're going to be able to sustain and support our argument, you know, when you look at the projection of our population growth. So to support our population, we have to offer some type of increase and better rail services. So I think that's going to be part of our argument. And positive things are happening here. So, yes, definitely support this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. All in favour of the motion, councillors? Against? Motion carried. Item 10.1, well, goodness gracious, tabled motions, councillors. We haven't got any. Any reports from council delegations to other bodies? Nil. Reports from special committees? Nothing there. Notice of motions, amendments or rescissions? Nothing there, councillors. Documents for signing and sealing? That's also nothing. 16.1 on page 184, we have a recommendation. Do we have a councillor wishing to move that recommendation as the motion?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Seconder, please. No, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Patterson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Patterson? No. Councillor.
I really don't want to speak to anything.
Councillor Sutton.
No, it just
No.
shows we've been out in the community doing what we're supposed to do.
Any councillor wishing to speak against this motion? Any other comments for the motion? Councillor Patterson, any closing comments
No, thank
to
you.
elaborate on your
It's all been
huge
said
speech
well.
before? Yeah, fabulous. That being said, all in favour? Against? Motion carried. 17.1, councillors, is the assemblies of councillors.
I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
I've just got to find the page where we move it, councillor Patterson.
Doesn't matter, just move.
There's a recommendation that the council note the record of assemblies of councillors. Seconder, please.
I can second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Keefe, councillor Patterson.
No, thank you.
Councillor O'Keefe, any comment?
No, it's all pretty listed there. Thank
Well,
you,
any
Mr Mayor.
councillor wishing to speak against the motion? For the motion? Any elaboration on your earlier comments, councillor Patterson?
No, it's all been covered.
Yes, thank you. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Any urgent and other business? Thank you, councillors. Public question time. We have two questions. Two questions.
We do, Mr Mayor, and two questions from John Gray. John's in the audience tonight, so welcome John again. First question, approximately 12 years ago, a comprehensive flood study in partnership with the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority was conducted, resulting in 100-year computed expected flood levels in Shepparton and Rupner being related to individual floor levels of dwellings located in the flood overlay. Diagrammatic information suitable for individual placement in, say, electronic meter boxes was distributed to relevant premises. Has that program continued, and if so, has new data now been included by way of update? John, the response is that Council, in collaboration with the CMA, Goulburn Broken CMA, has recently commenced with a project to develop a web portal powered by HydroNet and Google Maps to allow the general community to access the recently updated flood mapping and reports without the need to have secure login credentials. This portal will allow users to search for their property of interest and download a report containing flooding information for the property from the last flood studies. Where available, this will include floor and inundation levels. The portal will also allow users to look at the flood maps for the area around their properties. This portal will be in development throughout this year and is currently planned to go live before the end of the year. Question 2. What is the current progress status of the 10-year expectation of planned construction of an extension to the Shepparton-Marupna shared path network from Kidstown to Gemmell Swamp Wildlife Reserve? The response, the draft 17-18 capital budget has an allocation of $90,000 towards detailed planning of the first of this network of shared pathways. The 10-year capital budget then has allowance for the construction of the first pathway, while the second has detailed planning undertaken. This ensures that in each of the 10 years a pathway is delivered for the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Harriott. That being said, Mr Harriott, that brings us to the end of our meeting. So thank you, councillors. Thank you, the Public Gallery. I declare the meeting closed at 7:21. Thank you. Before we go to the Public Gallery, there is a barbecue happening
Right now.
actually, so I suggest you beat us out there.